Hello, everyone. I'm Smita Bagla. I'm a past board member of IIT USA and a current board member of IIT SoCal. And it's our pleasure to invite you to this podcast. So, as you look at the India's thriving ecosystem today, unicorns, venture capitalists, global ambition, successful entrepreneurs, it just feels amazing. However, until recently, this was not the case. Indian parents were not at all excited about supporting their kids who were venturing into entrepreneurship. They wanted them just to be doctors and engineers. My guest today didn't just witness that change, he envisioned the mind shift and led the change. Today, my guest is Mr. Kanwal Rekhi, an entrepreneur, an investor, a mentor, and one of the major architects of the modern internet. Kanwal Rekhi is a distinguished IIT alum, a Silicon Valley pioneer, founder of Excelan, co-founder of TIE, and one of the earliest believers that Indians could build world-class technology companies, not just work for them. And Pan IIT USA recognized his contributions with their highest award in 2010. I consider him to be my mentor, and as a fellow IITian, this conversation is personal. This conversation is not just about success. It's about curiosity, overcoming failure, establishing identity. And Kanwal has pointed this all out in his memoir called The Groundbreaker, which is really a mentoring manual for tough choices and grit. Hello, Kanwal. Thanks for joining us. So, the very first time I met you, I think you remember that you were the COO of major software company, and I was a software engineer who wrote the very first NLM that ran on your network, and you came down to LA to give us the guidance as to how to do it.
That's almost 40 years ago, right?
Yeah. Since that time, you have transferred into a venture investor and a major mentor. So thank you for doing that. You mentioned in your book that your father essentially wrote you off early in the life because you weren't army material like your brothers. And you called this rejection a hidden blessing. How being underestimated during your early life shaped your first principles approach to business and leadership?
Well, thank you for having me here. And, I was an awkward child. I had a speech impediment. I was, physically very awkward. And my father, being an army officer, he would look at me and say, he will, in despair, what's going to happen to me? Because back then, the only jobs, were going to NDA to become an officer, or to, the government jobs were and the government wanted perfect people with the perfect speech. I also went to Hindi medium school, so I didn't speak any English either. So my father would say, my eldest brother went to NDA, my second brother went to IMA, and they became officers. And my father would say, I don't know how to help you. You're on your own, type of thing. So kind of stunned, but it also, like I said in my book, is very liberating, feeling, because nobody expects much of you, and so failure is assumed. So if you fail, you're not going to surprise anybody, right? And so now you're freed up to take all the risks you want to take in life, right? And so in my case, I shot for the stars. I went to IIT, JE exam, and I made it, right?
So thank you. Coming to IIT, you studied power engineering, electrical engineering at IIT Bombay. How did IIT shape the way you think, not just as an engineer, but as a leader?
Well, so the thing about IIT was, you are among, best of the best from all over India.
Mm-hmm.
So competition was tough. And so by the way, earlier at IIT, there was a tiering of people who went to public school, spoke good English, you know, yeah, people from Doon School, Mount Abu, and whatever, right? And the people like me, who barely spoke English. So so that tiering very quickly happened because these people are doing debates and drama, and we are just trying to get by, right? But IITs are a great equalizer. A great equalizer. The first test that happened, I did better than most of the people who spoke better English than I did in math, in physics. So sort of, it was a very positive feedback. Very positive feedback. Hey, I belong here. I am. I yeah, I didn't need any help or any so there was this thing. But IIT is also at least IIT Bombay was very focused on fundamentals. They will talk about first principle thinking, go back to fundamentals, understand the fundamentals behind any and all problems, and that really suited me well.
Wonderful, wonderful. You're right about IIT being a great equalizer.
Mm.
All the people who are like really, really stars in their own eyes when they come to IIT, they know they are all one of the many. But it does teach you grit also. So you arrived in United States during the period of racial tension and social upheaval. Life in USA came with its own set of challenges, layoffs, certain experiences, and more. In some way, it feels like it's again 2026 these days. So, how does one navigate such a reality in foreign land without bitterness, without losing self belief or self esteem? And what was the immigrant experience at that time?
So, year 26 is nothing like it was in 67. America was openly racist to society. The language was openly racist. The N word was used all the time. I mean, they would make fun of everybody. The Indians were called CJs, camel jattis, right? When I got here, so Americans were proudly racist, right? But at the same time, the laws were changing. The 1965, equal, laws of civil rights and all that. So there was this movement towards, more racial justice, and so people like us, we knew America was racist, when we came here. So it wasn't any news to us, right? But we came because of the opportunity. It was a land of opportunity. So the basic approach was keep your head down, mind your business, yeah, yeah, and do what needs to be done to prove yourself, and ignore every and all extraneous things, because there was no way you could debate with anybody about racism, right? So and coming back to the layoffs and all that, the layoffs are part of American yeah way of doing business, right? So
Right.
again, you keep your head down, bide by your time, right?
Wow. But you married Anne, from what I remember, just 1 year after America permitted cross racial unions. So you were really a groundbreaker then, also. How did marrying Anne or being with Anne change your life?
So and I were pen pals.
Hmm.
So we had been writing to each other for several years, and so we sort of didn't expect to see each other at all. When we started to write to each other, so you become a little bit more open about what you write. So when we met finally in 1970, I was here 3 years already. We knew each other very, very well, and you know, so to the point, where I felt, that hey, I could, make my moves, right? Yeah, and so 2 weeks after we met, I asked her, how about getting married? And she said yes, right? Not right away, but a few weeks later, she said yes. And so that was a very big morale booster. Yeah, very big morale booster. Yeah, if you remember, I was used to being sort of rejected, by my father. Yeah, I had low self-esteem as a person. Even after I got to IIT, because there was this set of people who were so much more polished than I was, right? And here's a person who's accepted me very quickly, right? So it was a great morale booster for me.
Wow. So,
And incidentally, we were married for 54 years before she passed away last year.
yeah, sorry about that. She was a lovely person. I met her a couple of times. So, how did these experiences lead you to create Excelan? And then also when Excelan board made you the interim CEO, because you knew that they were looking for somebody as a white knight and didn't believe that an Indian engineer with a thick accent could really save the company.
Yeah.
So, how did you navigate that lack of confidence from your own board while simultaneously leading the company into a radical turnaround?
Yeah.
So, both of those.
So Epsilon happened, almost, happened in 1982, and I was here in 1967, and I were married in 1971. So there was a 10-year of me working, at a job, where I did extremely well. I was, the best engineer they ever had. And so by late 70s, I was very confident about my technical capabilities. I knew, I could tackle any technical problems. If it was digital, I could handle it, right? And so by 1981,
Mm-hmm.
I realized that I wasn't getting any promotions, into management ranks. I was getting raises. I was doing very well as a technical person. So it wasn't as if I wasn't making the market salary, but I wasn't getting any promotion into management ranks. And I'm only 35, and all of a sudden I start to feel like, this is as far as I can grow in life if I work for somebody, because they don't think of us as a managerial material. They thought of me very highly as a technical person, but not as a managerial person. So eventually, you have to start saying, is this all there is in life? Or, and Silicon Valley, where I was based, had this entrepreneurial activity all around you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, I said, why not me? Why can't I be an entrepreneur? So I had to make my move, towards the end of 1981. Yeah.
So, you started Excellent then.
Mm.
And but also is what like when when you were the interim CEO and you knew that your board was looking for a white knight, how did you convince
But
them?
so before we get there, the 1981, was the year the world changed. IBM PC was announced that year, right? And we already had the mainframes, mini computers, super micros, and now PC on the desktop.
Mm-hmm.
So it was becoming very clear to me, and these machines will need to be networked, and that was the thing that we decided to do at Epsilon. Also that year, Intel, Digital, and Xerox, joined forces to announce this protocol called Ethernet, a future networking protocol. They said chips will be available to implement these protocols in 3 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, I put two and two together. Oh, these things need to be networked, and they say this protocol standard. So I looked at these standards, and I said, I don't need to wait for the chips. I can implement these standards very quickly, right? And so we did all that, and we built the boards for all sorts of computers. And the idea was, you have to have the network interfaces for all the computers. And we got funded by VC
Mm-hmm.
eventually. After 100 no's, we got one yes. The company didn't do very well. I was the co-founder. The again another story here. I was a technical founder, and this other person, Dr. Inder Mohan Sen, he was my IIT Kharagpur, Yale PhD, Doon Stool, again very polished, very so he was the CEO, and Inder was managing sales and marketing. I was managing the engineering and manufacturing. We had all this stuff, but it wasn't selling.
Mm-hmm.
So in the finally board finally got upset. They fired in the the money was running out also, and so they fired in the for a variety of reasons, and then they looked at me and said, you become take charge, don't spend any money while we don't look for a CEO. But also on their way out, they said, no more money for us. The person who had funded us in the first place, he said, I should have never funded you guys because I knew the Indians would sell, Indians would market, and that turned out to be the case, right? And so, so now again they handed me the company. Basically they made it clear that they are writing us off.
Mm-hmm.
Same experience I had before. I felt very liberated. They wrote us off. Now I have the company and see what I can do, right? And I felt very liberated. And I did some deep thinking. Went back to basic first principles. Why aren't people buying? Why don't they need it? Is there competition? Is there are we priced right? So I did some thing like that, and very quickly realized that there was a need for this thing, and maybe we have not done the proper marketing. And so I started doing marketing.
Awesome.
Mm.
Awesome. I also remember, like, you had a motto called "In purchase orders we trust," and you stood your ground with giant corporations like GM when they demanded you to drop TCIP for OSI. So, so why, like, can you tell us more about your motto, "In purchase orders we trust,"
Yeah.
and why did you believe that the
Yeah.
practical, pragmatic results on the ground should always outweigh corporate edicts from the boardroom?
So as a business person, the only thing that matters to you is that if people willing to pay good money for what you're selling, and that now is a purchaser. We had decided to bet on TCP/IP and Ethernet, and we were selling. And after I fixed the marketing problem, we were selling. Money was coming in. We are becoming. We are growing nicely. But GM and Boeing, the two large customers, they both wanted me to do the OSI portals.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have the resources to do OSI portals, and they threatened to cut me off. I will not be able to sell GM and Boeing. Between them, they were roughly about 20% of my business. But while they're threatening to cut me off, the corporate guys, they're buying at the same time. I'm getting purchase orders. The GM guy, I can't remember his name anymore. He told me, unless I commit to do the OSI, the GM will never buy from us. Right when he threatened me, I got the largest purchase order from GM, like the same day or the next day.
Wow.
So who should I trust? His threat or the purchase order?
So this was a shift of the power equation.
Yeah.
So, like, I know you have told us a little bit about it, but when did you really realize that you had the leverage here in front of?
So here's a real story. So GM had decided to use the OSI portals and also had the showcase truck plant in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And where they were using robots and this OSI portal technology to run the assembly line, and they invited the Wall Street reporters. And this is a story which appeared on the front page of Wall Street around the same time. And this is happening to me. When these people came to visit the plant, one of the robots turned around and painted all the reporters with the paint. their software was malfunctioning. There were other plants which were using TCP/IP and Ethernet, which I was supplying. And also, I realized that this guy at corporate, who is a technology czar, is focused on technology rather than on production. The plant managers need reliable technology. They're buying from me, and he's threatening to cut me off. And I very quickly realized that he has no power. He has no power to cut me off because his plant managers depend upon me. And because while he's threatening to cut me off, I get the largest purchase order. Similar stuff happened at Boeing. So I started saying, you can talk to me. I told this guy I will do the OSI either if he funds it or it gives me out of 1,000 units upfront now. Give me a purchase order, so I can start investing in that one. I'm not going to invest in OSI on just a threat, right?
Yeah, unless he pays for it.
Unless you pay for it, yeah. So so that was my thing. In purchase order, I trust.
Right. That is an awesome motto. So up till now, we've talked about your successes, but over the years, there were some regrets and misses too. Like, for example, you nearly bought 25% of Cisco for just $10 million.
Yeah.
And you almost invested in Hotmail when Microsoft bought, which that was the company, I think Microsoft bought it for $400 million after that. So
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
should your readers emotionally process these near misses, like
So,
moments where history could have gone the other way?
so Cisco then was in 1988. We had gone public in 1987. We had done really well. So I was starting to feel good about myself and all that. And so there was the opportunity to invest $10 million into Cisco, in their financing round. And we had the cash. So I proposed, but my board felt that I was not experienced enough to be making such investment moves. Yeah, you're a good engineer. You're turning out to be a good marketing guy, but you're making these financial moves. We're not sure about that, but so they overwrote it. About 18 months later, Cisco went public. And did extremely well. If you had bought 25% of Cisco, we would have been in a totally different place. But such is life, right? I'm still learning. I'm still things are still happening. And with respect to Hotmail, Sabir had Hotmail, he had zero revenue and he had a big expense, and there was no prospect of revenue. Because Hotmail was free, right? So I would say, Sabir, how would we ever make money? How would you ever be? I mean, I would invest. If I could see down the road, and Sabir would say, well, if we have 10 million users, we could upsell a lot. But Sabir, you have nothing to upsell. You are a startup. And then he says, oh, if you have 10 million users, it would be worth a lot to somebody else. And that was something I didn't understand until Microsoft stepped up to buy them. And but I did agree to invest in Sabir, and he did agree to charge $10 a year, for the Hotmail, and but his heart was not in it. So I finally realized when Microsoft stepped up to buy them that asset has a different value in different hands. Microsoft had a lot to upsell. That's we didn't have anything to upsell. And also Microsoft has spent $2 billion to build do that UUNet or whatever the Amazon part. And they are only at 1 million users. And here they were buying 10 million users for $400 million. So for them, the math was very simple. So you learn as that.
You win some, you lose some.
You win some, you lose some. That's the way life is, right?
Right. So you could have started other companies, but you started mentoring Indian companies, Indian entrepreneurs, and you have invested in them and everything. So now, when you look at this moment, you know, with all the entrepreneurship ecosystem in India, what would it take to create India as the number one economy in the world by 100 years of independence?
So,
Um,
so a couple of things, right? So 1991, maybe a little bit of history, maybe a little bit of history lesson. In 1800, when the British took over India, India was the largest, most productive, most creative economy in the world. Roughly about 25% of world's GDP. When they left in 1947, we were about 2% of world GDP. They had bled us, dry. But the tragedy of India is after independence. 1947 to 1991, our own government didn't have any faith in our people, our entrepreneurs. Government decided to control the economy from the top, and that really, was a disastrous. By 1991, India was only 1% of the world's GDP. It was 2% in 1947.
yeah.
So when the ship was turned around, and so we started pushing entrepreneurship in India in 90s. I mean, TIE started in 92, 93 here. We were starting to talk about entrepreneurship in India by mid-90s, and we had that conference in Bombay and Delhi in 98, I think. Entrepreneurship and wealth creation, Silicon Valley Star. That was the first time anybody talked about that one. So now, 34 years of history since 91. India is growing at 3.5% of world's GDP now. And it's now fourth largest economy in the world. It has roughly about 200,000 entrepreneurs. A couple of hundred, almost 200 unicorns. So you can see the change these entrepreneurs are making up. The government is very focused on entrepreneurship. The Startup India campaign. They have opened up defense, they have opened up space, they have opened up nuclear to the entrepreneurs, right? So India is now on the move. So my thing is, can we have 1 million entrepreneurs by 2030? Can we have 10 million entrepreneurs by 2047? Can we have the entrepreneurship in the villages and third and fourth tier cities, right? If we can do that, make that happen, India will become the number one economy again that it was in 1800. I'm not talking about tomorrow. I'm talking about 50 years out.
Right.
In 2075, because it takes time for these things to permeate through the system, right? So I've been pushing that very hard. Can we put our bet on our own people? Can we trust them to do the? We are smart people. Indians are smart people. We can compete with the best of the best here in Silicon Valley and come out on the top. So why do we not replicate that environment in India?
Well, so you bet on yourself in your life, you bet on America, you bet on India, you're betting now on all the Indian entrepreneurs. So what is your prediction what is your latest bet that you think will be true soon?
Yeah. So China is number 2 right now, right? And there's a feeling that China might become number 1, right? They have invested heavily in R&D. They have invested heavily in education. So there's a hopelessness about India. Can India ever catch up with China? But if you take a step back, China committed an original sin in 70s of one-child policy. And China is sort of losing population at a very rapid rate. And if I project 50 years out, China would have shrunk from current population of 1.4 down to about 1 billion people. Whereas India was drove from 1.4 to 1.6 billion, billion people. So China will have this issue of very much aging population with very few younger people taking care of that one. They will not be able to afford to do what they have done up now. So I look at China as a Communist Party has done really wonderful job on one front, but they committed this original sin back in 70s, and it's very hard to overcome that population within. U.S. on the other hand, has this issue. We got to where we got to be number one in the world by depending upon the free markets, free trade, immigration of smart people into America, and we're sort of walking away from that, right? Under Trump, I don't know if it will last, but right now we are walking away from that one. India, on the other hand, is becoming more entrepreneurial, is becoming more open market. The free trade agreement with Europe, England, UAE, and sort of negotiating free trade agreement with the US. So India is starting to adopt the policy that made the US very great. So I'm saying a little bit more focused, purposeful, thing on that one. Can we? What should we be doing now to make sure that we don't miss out this opportunity that we have?
Right. So finally, if a young IIT student, immigrant, or an underestimated dreamer is listening, someone who's very unsure if they belong, what is the single truth they should take away from your book, The Groundbreaker, that you hope stays with them long after this conversation ends? So tell us, what do you want the readers to take away from this book, Groundbreaker?
So two things I want to talk about. Our generation had no opportunity in India. And US had opened up in 1965, and so US had come and we came and we made the most out of it, right? But nobody has a birthright, to expect, the right to immigrate to America. Americans opened the door back in 65. They are trying to close the door now, and it's their absolute right to do that one, right? But at the same time, if you are from India, the opportunities are emerging in India. Entrepreneurial opportunities are emerging in India. Job, if you're qualified person, job opportunities are endless. All these global capability centers are opening up. You're up to snuff on the technology with internet. You're connected into the latest stuff from anywhere in the world, right? So the need to come to America has disappeared. Well, that door is, US door is shutting down. This new door has opened up in India. So my message to people is, step forward and try your hand at becoming an entrepreneur. A person like me, very ordinary education, from Kanpur, Hindi medium school, is able to, do it. What's stopping you? What's stopping you? And so if you read the book, the recurring theme in the book is, why not me? Why can't I be? An entrepreneur. Why can't I do it? And it's all right if you believe that you're not smart enough and you can't do it, and you know yourself better than anybody else. But you will never know unless you have tried. And so I tell people, the fear of failure, keeps you from trying. But it's not a shame that you tried and you failed. It would be a shame that you didn't even try.
So let's segue into your book now. We would like to know as to why you wrote the book, who is the book intended for, and what message do you want people to take away from your book? Would you like to expand on that, please?
So I started writing blogs on internet maybe 15, 20 years ago. And so my son, one day said, "Dad, this, I didn't know he was selecting those plots. He was saving them. He had a folder. He said, Dad, there's enough material here for a book. Why don't you write a book? This stuff will disappear. Can we, compile all this stuff into a book?" So he was on my back. So that was the origin of the writing the book. But I told him I'm not an author. I write the short blogs based upon what's on my mind. And so he took charge. He brought this author. Todd Gold. Todd Gold was a publisher of People magazine, and he has done about 50 plus books, mostly for Hollywood stars. And Drew Barrymore, I mean, he's done mostly for Hollywood stars, over 20 bestsellers, several New York Times bestsellers. So Todd, I said, why would Todd be interested in my story? So, but Ben sent him the whole folder of blogs, and Todd got very excited. He said, there's material here, we can make a book. So Todd and I spent 2 years, sort of, doing the book. The first version wasn't very exciting. Second one was better. But then I got fired up. I said, who are we writing this book for? What message are we trying to deliver? And once I asked those questions, became very clear that so I told him I'm writing this book for two audiences. One is the young Indians, to inspire them to become entrepreneurs, and second is to explain to American audience what happened. Where did these Indians come from overnight? They are becoming CEOs and entrepreneurs in America. What happened to India? A land of snake charmers and land of beggars, becoming a technology powerhouse. So explain to them. So those were the two audiences, and so the third version of the book, we nailed it, and I was very happy. So I sent out the early draft, of this third version to about 30 people, both in India and the US. And I got universally 2 thumbs up from all of them. And so after that one, we said, this is it. We polished it and polished it and polished it, to make sure the story has a smooth flow. And so the book has been receiving good reviews in India. And I put a couple of them on the internet. One from the business world was excellent review. And one of the reviewers sent me a message then, hey, this should become a textbook at IITs. I said, sure, yeah.
Absolutely. Wonderful, wonderful. So in your book, you do explain the rise of Indian Americans, and you just mentioned is that in the book that you explained is why is India forced now. Would you expand a little bit more about it, that what readers will get from your book?
So people of my generation, when we came to America, the branding of India was very simple: a land of snake charmers and land of beggars. Very little, was expected of us. Nice people. They got their independence, but they can be very smart. So it took, I mentioned before, there was no way to fight that perception, right? It's other than to keep your head down, do what you need to do to prove yourself. It took us several years. By mid 70s, maybe 7-8 years after I was here, people started to acknowledge, hey, there's a smart set of people from India. And initially, well, a country of billion people, few outliers, few outliers, of course, so we got tagged as outliers. And there are too many of us to be outliers. So, well, then Indians have this smart mathematical gene, which gives them, this technical capability. So it's slow and steady progress, you had to do, people like me had to step out and do the startups, become entrepreneur, do the selling and marketing, to prove that, hey, we are not single dimensional people. We are capable of doing that thing. But I have come to believe that Indians are as smart people as any out there. And we are knowledge oriented people. And, so I tell to my American friends that our overnight sudden rise was not so sudden. It took a long time.
It was overnight after 20 years.
After 20 years, right? It took 20 years to be overnight.
Yes. In your book, you have lots of these lessons. If you could highlight a couple of chapters that people should definitely read, which ones would that be?
Well, it's hard. It's hard to single out because the book is 25 chapters. Each chapter is a different story, with a different moral. And I talked about different things. The point I want to make to people is entrepreneurship is an intelligent man's game. It's a smart man's game. It's a very deliberative process. You have to hold yourself accountable. You can't be saying that I'm the best. There are very smart people out there. Every step of one of the points I do want to make is your numbers have to tell you a whole story. I have a story. My board member John Bosch, one day told me, yada, spare me the story, show me the numbers. So your numbers have to speak. You can't be saying that I'm doing really well, and then your numbers are not, reflecting that one, right? So
the facts.
Everything has to reflect in the bottom line.
Awesome. Show me the purchase orders.
Show me the purchase order. I'll trust you if you buy it. I'll take your word for it if you send me a purchase order, right?
Right.
I'll tell you, you are a CEO of your life. You are totally in charge. How far you will grow in life is decided by what you decide to do. And so I tell people, becoming an entrepreneur is giving yourself an opportunity to achieve your potential. When you work for somebody else, you're doing what they need you to do. They tie you down, this project, this delivery, this deadline here and now. You need to liberate yourself and say, how far can I do in life? And nobody has the right to tell you, that you should become an entrepreneur, and put yourself through hardship. You are going to put yourself through hardship for several years. And so it has to come from inside. No mother and no father says, beta entrepreneur bano, right? I'm sure your mom didn't tell you to become entrepreneur, right? Go to IIT, settle down, become doctor, become engineer, right? I think of becoming an entrepreneur is a personal quest. And to discover yourself, and there's a Hindi word, it's your tapasya. You go and spend a few years and come back with it. Whatever, right? So the message to younger people is, I looked at myself, I saw my shortcomings, and I said, and these are the limitations I have. Can I overcome them? I took courses in speech therapy, you name it, and I invested heavily, on improving myself as an individual, every step of the way, and I still do. So you look at your assets, you look at your shortcomings, and say, how do I use my assets, and how do I overcome my shortcomings, right?
Yeah, your guidance to me that early on was similar. So I remember you said, take bet on yourself, and you're the CEO of your own life. So
You have to. If you cannot bet on yourself, nobody else would either.
yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kanwal.